Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a couple of months, but today we actually have something meaningful to share with you. If you remember anything about the car, one of the things that we've been struggling with is brake fade at the track. And all of last year, that was sort of one of the main things we were trying to work towards addressing. So we installed the intake ducts or brake cooling ducts for the rotors, and then tried out a lot of different brake compounds from G-Lock, trying to get more and more aggressive to see if it was the pad compound that was not able to keep up with the heat. And ultimately, at the end of the year, came to the decision that the brake kit that's on the car, we've just simply outgrown it, at least for the way the car is currently set up with the coilovers and the tires. So bit the bullet and got a big brake kit, or a big brake kit. Was trying to avoid getting a bigger kit for a couple of different reasons. Right now, the AP Racing kit that I have will fit under 17-inch rims, and personally, you got to think about, or at least for me, I'm thinking about unsprung weight on a smaller kit versus a bigger kit, and the ability to run a smaller wheel, a 17-inch over 18-inch. Right, the 17-inch rim is going to be lighter, and the brake kit that fits under that is going to be lighter. Going to this bigger kit, you have to run an 18-inch rim, which is going to be heavier, and the brake kit itself is also going to be heavier. So the Kasai rims, the K4Rs that I have, are actually up for sale. Those rims are about 15 pounds each. The new rims that you see here, I actually have two sets of these. These are about 18 pounds each. So that's 3 pounds of additional unsprung weight. And then I think the new kit, the newer big brake kit, I think is maybe an additional 2 or 3 pounds, maybe 3 or 4 pounds. I'm not 100% sure. So we're adding unsprung weight to the car. So I think theoretically it's going to slow it down in the straights. So might see my straight speeds, top end straight speeds drop. But with the 18-inch rims, we did go to a wider rim. So these are the Titan 7 R10s. I think they're like an 18 by 9.5 or 9 or something like that. So the tires that we'll be running at the track now are going to be 255s, 35 18s. And previously we were running 235, 45 17s. So there's a little bit more tire there, which may mean more quartering speed. So it's a toss-up. You know, we're losing a little bit of straight line speed, and we might be gaining some cornering speed. So we'll see how that works out in terms of lap times. And then we're definitely going to see some improvements in lap times from braking, just because we can probably have a more consistent brake to work with, maybe brake a little bit deeper, and have less fade, right? Because I think previously I discussed braking G's, and I just wasn't able to pull the amount of G's from the tires that I was getting in the corners laterally. So I'm going to get the car up on jacks, and we'll just go straight to getting the front brakes on. The other thing is I do have the knockoff Brembos for the rear. That's a whole other topic I guess we'll get to when we start working on the rears. But let's start with the fronts. I do want to avoid replacing the stainless steel brake lines on the car. It has SS lines right now, and by Spiegler, and I like the brand. You know, it's a lifetime warranty. And I've been told that it may or may not work with the new big brake kit. So I've got the newer lines over there, and I'm just gonna take them out and use them as a kind of a ruler to measure my current lines versus the older ones. If they're the same length, I'm likely going to use the old lines. From what I've read, the only difference could be the Banjo fitting on the back of the caliper. So we'll take a peek here. Let me get the car up and get the wheels off and show you what we're looking at. All right, guys, the car is up. I got the first wheel off, and we're looking at the current big brake kit that's on there. And so you know, to me, that was a pretty nice kit. But if I go ahead and take the new rotor and put it up next to this, it's significantly larger, which is great. Larger means just more material to absorb heat, which I think is going to be one of the main reasons why we're going to reduce brake fade. The other thing is the size of this caliper. It's huge. There are two versions of this caliper, 6.0 and 6.8. This is the 6.8. It is the bigger version of the caliper. It's actually wider and will take a thicker brake pad. So this brake caliper, I think this is the 98350. This uses a 20 millimeter thick brake pad. This uses a 25 millimeter brake pad. So the caliper itself is just super wide, which is one of the reasons why we're running the Titan 7 rims. I couldn't find a rim that would clear this caliper without spacers. And I'm just not a fan of spacers. It's an extra step when removing and swapping wheels. And that's just something that I could potentially forget, which is why we went with the Titan 7s. I've talked to a bunch of different rim manufacturers, and no one could really confirm that this caliper would clear, even though I provided them with a brake template. And Titan 7 was just one of those companies that was quick to kind of confirm and help me out there, which is why I selected them. So in terms of removing the old setup, I think these old brake lines are going to work. So really all I have to do is just take out the brake pads, remove the two bolts holding the caliper onto the hub adapter, and then remove the hub adapter. And the only challenging thing may be the hub adapter, because I believe when I originally installed it, it called for red Loctite. So we've got a little torch here in case we need to heat up some bolts. So we will get to work on that right now. Okay, so the caliper's off, rotor's off. This is the bracket that I was referring to. This is the one that has red Loctite on it, which may or may not prove to be difficult. So let's go ahead and get the right hex size and see if we can break it without heating it up. Otherwise, we'll have to heat it up. Oops. All right, bracket is off. Accidentally melted. There's like a rubber or plastic bushing on the back of this. Kind of melted it a little bit. I think it should be okay, I hope. I mean, you can take it off and replace it with washers and whatnot. I think that's what I did on the other side. But in any case, bracket is off. I've got to put the new one on. There's a little bit of rust or something in here, so I'm going to hit it with some brake clean here. Just to and I've got my new bracket here. with these awesome machine nut holes for weight reduction. Sweet. And new hardware. Also have some red Loctite provided by AP Racing or Essex parts. So double check the torque spec on this. I think it's like 55 foot-pounds or something like that. And go ahead and let the brake clean dry a little bit. And then we'll put this on. All right, while that brake clean is drying off, I'm gonna prep the rotor and the caliper. Usually you wanna clean the calipers because sometimes they ship with like an oil to keep it from rusting. So I've got some soap on a cloth here, and I'll give this a quick wipe down. I'll rinse it, then I will hit it with some brake clean as well. So I'm gonna rinse that here in a second. The other thing I'm going to do is the bigger calipers come with a retaining clip that you can install. So instead of having to take out these bridges to remove your caliper or your brake pads, you can just quickly flip this retaining clip open and just pull out your pads really fast. And it's an option on the larger or the wider caliper. Don't know how handy it's going to be for me, but since it comes with all the hardware to do it, let's just go ahead and install it. All right, retaining clip on the caliper has been installed. So works like this. Nice, pretty cool feature. Don't know how helpful it's going to be because you still have to push the pistons back in. Rotor is drying. So next thing we got to do is install these hub adapters. Whoops. So we'll go ahead and thread these on first, and then remove them one by one, add the red Loctite. One drop of red Loctite. Torque wrench is set at 55. Very good. All right, so the rotor sitting on the studs, and let's see here. So the way you confirm these are going in the right direction, that way, so that way, and then there's an arrow pointing in the direction for the caliper. It's pointing up, so that direction. So this is the right caliper for the right side. And make sure that rotor's sitting on there. Set that on. Ooh, yeah. Cool. And we're going 40 foot-pounds on these. Okay, now to reinstall the Banjo bolt for the brake fitting, and I think that's 14 foot-pounds. Okay, turn the wheel here so I can get to this Banjo fitting a little bit better on the brake caliper. All right. I think there's a cap on the back. Yep. I'm gonna remove that and then double check and just make sure that this bolt threads in, which it does. And then I'm gonna reuse the washers here, one on each side. That looks pretty good. All right, we're shooting for 14 foot-pounds. All right, got some daily pads here, Hawk HPS, I think, or HP 5.0, I don't know, something like that. Ooh, yes. Ooh, those are gonna rattle and make a lot of noise. Okay, I think that's it for this side. So I still need to bleed it, but I'm, working on all four corners today. So I'll go do the other side and then we'll move on to the rears here and kind of show you what's going to take to do the rears, and then we'll bleed the car. Okay, driver's side is done. Actually went a lot faster, having already done it once, and I think not having to work the camera and record stuff and find sockets. Let's go ahead and move to the rear. Before we start on that, let me just show you what the game plan is on the rear of the car now. Okay, so for the rear of the car, we have these Powerstop calipers. And the thing about these is they look like Brembo OE calipers that you would get on an STI. There's some kind of back and forth going around on the internet about whether or not these are Brembo knockoffs or whether or not they're remanufactured by Powerstop, i.e. they took some used calipers and reconditioned them, repowder coated them, or put a new fresh coat of powder coating on them and then sell them. I don't know, I couldn't tell you. They don't have Brembo logos on them, but the caliper halves do have the right part numbers, and it's not 100%. So the idea here is that we just want to go to a fixed caliper with a bigger rotor, which I'll show you when we get the wheel off. It's not completely necessary for the car, but I figured these calipers are about 170 a piece. So it's a screaming good deal, especially if they don't leak or fail on me, which I hope they don't. We'll find out here quickly. The rotors are pretty stinking cheap too. Yeah, all of this stuff was purchased on Rock Auto, at least for the rear of the car. But compared to the price of the kit for the front of the car, it's really not that much. So I figured it was worth doing. Everything should bolt straight on. I think the only challenge here, kind of think it might be the bolts here, maybe, I hope not. There's a maybe on this. And then the dust shield. So the dust shield is for the WRX rotor, and so because of that, it's smaller and it won't clear the new larger rotor. So we'll have to trim that here, and maybe we'll take the grinder out or something and cut it up, or maybe we won't use it at all. If there's nothing critical there that's heat sensitive, like a ball joint, or like a tie rod, which there may be, although we're running monoballs now, we might just not run the dust shield. So we'll find out here. The other thing is the back. These rotors, the vanes suck air in from the back face of the rotor, not kind of inside the hat. So if you have the dust shield there, you might be inhibiting kind of that vacuum or that suction force. So we'll see. We'll take everything apart here, let you guys look at it, and then we'll come to a conclusion on what to do. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure about these bolts for these brackets to the Brembos, or whether or not I can use these bolts for this bracket for the Brembos. I think they might be slightly longer. I'm not 100% sure. So to try to keep from not having to do too much work here, I'm going to remove the brake pads but not remove the brake line, set the caliper aside, and then remove the bracket, and then take a look at what's going on here. So let me go ahead and do that here real quick. All right, everything is on, and kind of skipped a few steps here because I ran into some problems. So let me explain what needs to be done here. First things first, the bolts that hold the WRX caliper bracket to the hub, they're the wrong bolts. So for the STI caliper, you need some coarse thread bolts. So this is an M10 by 1.5 bolt. This is a 40 millimeter bolt. It's slightly on the long side, so it sticks past the caliper, but it doesn't come in contact with the rotor. So I think it's going to be okay. It was either this or a 35 millimeter bolt. I would wager the factory one's like a 37 millimeter in terms of length. So you could probably go buy the OEM one if you wanted to, but I was in a pinch because I didn't do my research ahead of time. Okay, the other thing is, so the dust shield around here, I thought it was removable, and I guess this isn't the case. So I had to essentially trim it off using a multi-tool. I used the multi-tool, same tool I use for cutting the hood and installing the vents. So you have to trim that off so the disc fits on, and then there is a little bit of shielding that you have to cut around where the caliper meets the shield, because it tends to be a little bit on the tight side. And that's what these little bits are over here. Otherwise, that's it. Brake lines bolt up, and I think I'm just gonna use the ones that are on there right now. I don't see any reason to go through the hassle of replacing the stainless steel lines. So it's pretty much all you need to do. I need to look up torque specs for the Banjo bolt as well as the caliper to the hub, because I'm sure they're different, or at least I don't want to strip the caliper. It's like a really common thing with these calipers, is that a lot of people accidentally over tighten and they'll strip the threads out, and then they have to tap it and put a helicoil in or something like that. So don't want to make that mistake. So I'm going to torque everything down on this side, and then I'll go ahead and show you how I did everything on the other side. Okay, so this is the driver's side rear, and taking all the stock stuff off. I just want to show you what I mean by. So this is the dust shield. As far as I can tell, you can't take this off. Now maybe there is a way, and I don't know, but whatever. I've already cut the other side. So if I try to put this on, it interferes with this lip on the shield, this lip here. So what I'm going to do is just follow this inner bend where the shield's bent and just cut that off. The other thing that happens is when you try to put the caliper in this direction, it interferes with these little edges on the shield. So what I've done is I've just cut straight off like that, here and here, and the caliper slips in just fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that cut right now. Okay, everything's cut. And just gotta test fit this here. Looks good. And that pretty much covers it, guys. I don't think there's anything else to show you guys today. The rest of the stuff that needs to be done is pretty straightforward, and you probably don't really care to see it anyway. So thank you very much for watching. Sorry it took so long to put out a video, but was waiting for all these parts to come in. And hopefully in the next month or two, we'll hit the track and we'll post some videos up. If you have any questions, comments, you know what to do. And until then, we'll see you at the next video. Take care, guys.